face the facts. By Saturday, it's going to be 1 month after the so-called, by Friday, after the so-called massacre. Oh. And yet, we are still fishing for evidence. Yet, we are still confused about who said this, about who said that. Yet, we are still confused about who fired, who did not fire. Abba. Even when you have hot groups fighting, you don't need anybody to tell you when you get to the scene. You see what may have happened. But like I have said, I do not want to comment on whatever the panel is doing. The panel is looking into it, and it will be very nice for us to allow them to do their job. And that's what I will say about it.
You spoke of the chaos in Lagos that happened in Lagos and how severe it was. What would you say is your own explanation of why Lagos? Why did that kind of severe onslaught on Lagos? Well, that's the question many people are still asking them. Why is it that severe? What was the burning of BRTCs and so many mindless candidates and that? So I'm wondering what your own thoughts are.
Well, let me just say first that the guys who started it all, the youth, they had a noble intention. They had an intention that is enviable. All of us, we have felt it, police brutality, SARS high-handedness, and no society will tolerate that. We contribute money, we pay our taxes so that our police can do their work well. And if the police are now becoming part of the problem that we pay them to come and resolve, it will get to a point that people will come up and say no. And in this particular case, our young people came out to say no, it can't continue like this. We must end SARS, we must stop police brutality, we must have police reforms. So it's a noble intention, but there is no party that goes on forever. We advise them, the government advised them, elderly people spoke with them and said that, look, we can't continue to protest all your life. Let us now take it back to the government and see what the government is going to do about what you have said. Unfortunately, nobody listened. And now, because the thing continued days after, weeks, then the enemies of society, they now looked at it that, let us take advantage of this. And they mounted that kind of onslaught against Lagos. And if you look at the kind of assets that were damaged, they are things that really Lagosians are proud of. Our cultural heritage, the city hall, the first of its kind in Nigeria, the first seat of government, the High Court, the first in Nigeria, the oldest in Nigeria, that High Court, the kind of court that every judge would like to sit and practice in, the kind of court that every young lawyer dreams of practicing in, and everything now gone with all the documents in there. And then if you look at the laboratory that was also burnt, the first of its kind, I think in West Africa, that DNA laboratory that was burnt. Then look at the NPA building, and then look at all those buses that were burnt. Those buses, I mean, less than 3 months old, but with a scarce foreign exchange, and made to give comfort to the people of Lagos. And that people will come and say that that is the target of their anger, and that such buses must be burnt down. So it has to do with, I think, a team. We have to investigate this to be able to come out with appropriate appropriate answer to what has happened. A team of psychologists, because people with the right senses will not do that kind of thing. A team of psychiatric experts who may have to look at it that a normal human being can he, for whatever reason, go after such assets and just destroy them, that things that have been bought to give you comfort. And can you now turn them to an agent of discomfort for you and the people? And then the security people, we have to look at it. are you sure that the new Lagosians can come out and begin to burn everything that Lagos is proud of? Some people have bred politics into it and all of that, but I personally, I believe it's pure criminality. And that anybody who has done this should just be treated as a criminal who just hid under the noble intentions of our young men to do what is in his own mind, psychopathic mind. So I feel that, well, it's no single answer to it. A team has to come together to be able to profile, to be able to say that this is what may have happened. Psychiatrists, lawyers, ordinary people, sociologists, ordinary people can just look at it and say that can people in their right mental sense just go after these assets, and why?
A follow-up to that. There have been this insinuation that a few of some of the thugs who allegedly hijacked the protest have been identified on social media and other platforms. But to my surprise, arrest has not been made in that regard, whereas the so-called peaceful protesters, a few of them have been arrested. Would you like to clear the air on that?
Well, I would not like to talk for the police, but I observe things the way you are observing them too. And from the little knowledge that I have as a journalist and as a public servant, when security people are working, they don't go about talking about it on the pages of newspapers or on the radio. The guys that you have seen, you may have been able to identify one or two, but I tell you, tens and tens and tens of them have been arrested. Some have even been taken to court. Some of those who reportedly attacked peaceful protesters. And some of the protesters that you are talking about, I do not see. The government has always said that protest is a legitimate thing to do. But what you have to know is that your right to protest ends where it begins to infringe on other people's rights. There are people who have said that they were taking their wives to the hospital. I have one or two cases of people who are going to the hospital and they couldn't go because the roads were blocked. A woman, an expectant woman, died. And so many like that. I myself, personally, I wanted to go out, to go to work, to see things for myself. I couldn't go because where I stayed, it was a shooting all day around that time. So these people that you have identified, when the security people are going after them, they won't go and announce it. As I speak to you that you are here now doing your job, the security people too are doing their job. Forget about those ones you see on the street and you think that they are the typical security people. There are people who work day and night who don't sleep to ensure that you and I sleep. And such people are never known, they are never named. They remain incognito, they remain without identity. I have, lived in Nigeria to be able to know that there are people who are dying for us to be able to live, whose jobs are so dangerous, whose duty is to go and arrest those people you spoke of. People who are always armed 24 hours. Whose job is for, if a security people, if you are close to them enough to know some of the things that they have done to keep Lagos safe, honestly, you will hold a party for them. And if you know that there are cases that they can't bring even to the open court, you will be shocked. I think about a year and a half ago or so, it was reported that they arrested a Boko Haram commander in Lagos. All newspapers had it on the front page. You can imagine that. Nobody came out to dispute that story. And for people to have been able to trace a Boko Haram commander to Lagos, to have been able to arrest him, to have been able to watch him for days before arresting him, give it to them. Whoever arrested him is not known. Maybe just a small officer in the service. But all of us, we just sit down here, we look at the typical security man who is on the street, the policeman who is stopping down food driver, this and that. It's beyond that. So all those people that you are talking about that they have not been arrested, even when they are arrested, I don't think they will be celebrated by being shown on television or newspaper. And then look at the kind of people that they have arrested. I remember listening to the testimony of the army general at the panel. One woman who said she was going to buy food and she was putting on hijab and saying that her kids were at home, and then she was arrested. They should please tell the government to say what she had done wrong. They should reveal. She was even bringing out money that this is the change I collected where I went to buy food for my kids. Then they showed that picture among the looters. And ever since, people have kept quiet. Thank God for technology. When people make noise nowadays, people always go and do fact checking to be able to come out and say that what you have said is wrong. So I understand clearly what you are saying, that if you are arresting protesters, and I am telling you, I do not believe that lawful protesters are being arrested. Before they grab you, there must be something. As far as I'm concerned, those who are living and protesting, they haven't done any harm. But those who are using falsehood are the ones who have really done so much harm. Those who are pushing the question of massacre, and those who are saying that this person is my relation, he is dead, only for you to discover later that nothing like that happened. Those who are using scenes from Nollywood films to show that people died in Lagos. I mean, those are the ones that we really should worry about, because they contributed to the carnage that we are talking about. Thank God none of us here is missing now. Those who lost their loved ones, they really know the effect of people who are lying, who are using, who wanted the tension to continue, who wanted tempers to continue to rise, who wanted things to boil over. So those guys who are calling talks and all of that, I mean, they may be going after them without telling you. They can't be putting everything on television.
What's the government doing about the security situation? Because since that time, things have become a bit, yes.
Yeah, you are right. First, let me talk about what the government is doing. The government is trying to encourage policemen to go back to their beats, because these are people who are families. These are people who are human beings like us. But the difference is just that they are policemen. They lost 6 of their colleagues. We saw on the social media how policemen were being lynched like criminals. I mean, I went with the governor to Ajeromi police station, very big police station, and I saw that the barracks was looted. And then the kids came out, and the women, and they started crying and shouting that the government should do something, that they too, they are human beings. Are you saying it's an offense to be families of policemen? See, we don't have homes to stay now. The police lost 6 people. They lost about 28 stations. They lost police with whom they worked, with whom they played, with whom they did everything. And now these people are dead. So the morale was very low. So the governor had to go there to address them and promise them so many things. He said all of the people who died, their children will not suffer. They will be educated up to university level. He said he was going to, even though it's not within his own purview, he was going to do, the government of Lagos State will do insurance of policemen who are serving here. They will ensure that the policemen are well kitted and well equipped, and that all of the people in hospital, their bills will be passed on to the government. And if anybody feels so threatened, if you have a life-threatening situation, let them move the person to government hospital. So the governor, he was there with the deputy governor, Dr. Kadri Obafemi Hamzat, to tell the policemen that this is not the time to despair, this is not the time to lose hope, that it is the time to rise. And if you allow crime to continue to go up in the state, you will be doing the service to the honor of your colleagues who are falling in the line of duty. So the government is doing that. But the problem is that this question that you have asked, good as it is, we should do the reverse. What is it that the average Lagosian is doing to help the security situation? Day before yesterday, man was taken to court. Why? He was passing through, people were passing through bus lane. And this last man said, that is not good enough, don't do that, and he tried to stop them. And they started stoning him. They started stoning him until he was stoned until blood started gushing out of his head, and he had to be rushed to the hospital. And the man was charged with that kind of violence day before yesterday in court. Why will people go and be stoning policemen? Today I saw a video, it's going around now. This morning, the task force went to a place they call Ikeja Along to stop Okada riders from taking over the BRT lane. They started stoning them. The Lagosians, some of them, I do not call them true Lagosians. They are not true Lagosians because that is not who we are in Lagos. Lagosians are easygoing people, they are obedient people, they are hardworking people, they are people who love what they do and who are proud of the state. But anybody who can stand up to say, let us stone a policeman, I do not see that person as a true Lagosian. But that is what is going on now. So we have to check ourselves. Are we ready to obey the law? Are we ready to help the police to arrest criminals among us? Because these criminals, they stay with us. They are in the same community as we are in. Yesterday, the police was the task force was trying to stop them at Mile 2 area from disrupting traffic by taking one way and all of that. They went and brought all manner of weapons to start attacking the task force. And these are our brothers and sisters. If the government overseas, if the government says you shouldn't drive against traffic, they don't even need to tell you. There was a time in Lagos, if you drove against traffic, they take you to the hospital and check your brain. But now, people have seen it as normal. So how many people are you going to catch and take to the hospital to have their brains checked? So what I think we should do, all of us, is to educate, especially those of us in the media, to educate people in our communities that it pays to obey the law. It pays everybody. So it's symbiotic situation. You join the police too, even if you cannot enforce, to at least advocate that it is not good for us to do this, it is not good for us to disobey traffic law, it is not good for us to encourage criminals to take over the state. Because if the police are trying to enforce the law and we are stoning them, what we are doing is to simply encourage criminals to come in. And you know, criminals are always very ready. Any little situation may be a traffic situation. The one we are talking about was just a mere protest to say SARS must end because of all of the high-handedness that the police have been accused of. They see the way it ended, see where it has led us. So all of us, we have to come together to say that our society must be safe from criminals. And you see that they will disappear. So the police that we are talking about, that they've not been on the street and all of that, I have been seeing them, they are back on the street. But the point must be made that they too, they are human beings. I mean, you can't do it your colleague and begin to be happy. You want to see what the government will do. The society you are fighting to protect, we want to see what the society will do, to sympathize with you, to empathize with you, to show commitment that they are backing you up in what you are doing. All over the world, people are proud of their police. If you want to board a flight in some European countries and in America, they will say servicemen first. After that, children, kids, and women. But here in Nigeria, we detest our service people. We have even gone beyond that now. We are molesting them.
Killing them.
Yeah, it must not be allowed to happen.
But is the government aware, sir, that the situation is a lot more serious than it seems? Let me explain. It seems to me that the police are happy to stay back, knowing full well that there will be chaos in a matter of time. Because as we speak, people are getting robbed in broad daylight. If you are in traffic, the traffic light stops you, hoodlums will come, knock on your door and say, part with money. In some cases, some people are not so lucky. They either lose their lives or they lose their valuables. It has happened to some of us who are seated on this table. It's happening to people outside. People are taking advantage of the fact that the police, are no longer as visible as they used to be. So, is the government aware that this situation is really really threatening, really severe.
Of course, the government is aware, and that is why the government is doing so much about it. Take for example, I told you that Lagos State lost 28 police stations. The state lost barracks. So the 28 police station, the policemen working there, they go in there in the morning, and from there they move to their beats. We are just trying now to find maybe other cabin for them to stay. That is just being put together the beginning of this week, so that they can have somewhere to stay. But there are others too whose families have nowhere to stay. Their policemen, they got their barracks looted and burnt. So it all boils down to what I've been saying, that we must take responsibility. Those people among us who see the police and other security agencies as enemies, we have to caution them. We have to expose them. And like you are saying that people are being robbed in the traffic and all, that is true. The police have records of people they have arrested within the last 1 week. And so many of them who have been caught red-handed, who have been caught in the act. So it's not as if the government or the police are not doing anything about it. They are doing a lot. They are doing a lot. But you see, the experience of the last 2 weeks, people have used it to hide under it, to do so many untoward things. And that is the problem, because they now see it as a carnival. Around this time, even in peace times, even in normal times that we used to have, around this time when festivities of Christmas are coming, people begin to think of fast ways of making money, and criminals, they see it as a time for them to be on the loose. And the government usually strengthens the security around this time. But honestly, with what has happened to the police, they've been a little bit withdrawn. But now I think they have got their hands together, and they are having a haul of criminals. They are arresting them. The records that I have.
Sir, can you put a figure to what Lagos State has lost in the past 1 month? I know apparently it's not easy to quantify some of these properties that have been lost, especially the cultural heritage. But can you put a figure to what Lagos State has lost in the last 1 month? And how is the FG coming in to assist in helping to rebuild some of this?
It's a bit difficult to put a figure to it. That is why there's so many people that they calling to say we would like to help. From overseas, from within Nigeria, from Lagos State, from everywhere. And on Monday, the governor inaugurated the board of Lagos Rebuild Trust Fund, headed by Mr. I'll remember just now. Why they are doing this is for this thing to have a kind of a formal appearance. So this committee will now gather experts who can answer your question. They will gather valuers. They will gather actuaries. They will gather engineers. They will gather archivists and all manner of professionals who will now be able to say, well, if you want to rebuild City Hall today, we need X amount of money. So until that is done, it will be very difficult to place a figure to it. And I'm sure it's not the rebuilding of Lagos is not going to be something that is going to be done in a jiffy. It's something that is going to take some time, because the destruction, like I said, is on a scale beyond belief. It's unimaginable. Something that is in your conjectural spirit. Not something, I mean, you need to go to that high court. When the governor got there, he couldn't disembark from the vehicle. He was shedding tears. And all along, he has not been talking about his own personal loss, his own emotional loss. His family house on Lagos Island burnt, his mother's house in Surulere burnt. He has not been talking about all of that, and then you have videos of that. So it's, if you begin to talk about the Naira and Kobo of it, we'll be trivializing it. Like you have said, if you get to the Oba of Lagos Palace I mean, how do we begin to talk about that in Naira and Kobo? I mean, the whole heritage gone just like that. They shredded all historic papers there, pictures that you can't find anywhere else. All of those things that the Barracks used to be proud of and Lagosians used to be proud of, they destroy them. Or you go to Lagos City Hall and then you see the City Hall in that state. For those who are old enough to know the early days of City Hall, for them it's an emotional thing. I mean, it's sacrilegious. Many Lagos people who are indigenous of Lagos who knew when some of these assets were put together, they feel very, 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 very bad. And they feel insulted that no matter the anger that these people can do this for our heritage, because what Lagos has been for it is that you have so many people coming from all over the world and coming together and living together and speaking one language, the language of love, and then playing together, working together. And then all of a sudden, something snaps, and what you can do is to start killing people, money for us to go on the journey of a greater Lagos that Mr. Baide Sanwo-Olu has promised. But at the same time, we are not going to gloss over it and say that we won't investigate to know what happened.
So
will you say that maybe the NSAS protest and the underworld people that hijack it like that, will you say that it is due to frustration of the people who believe that maybe the present government, in terms of policy measure, in terms of the way they are ruling the country, are frustrated, and that the government was deaf to the outcry of the people, or that the government did not react?
There is no smoke without fire. Like I've told you, don't forget this is not the NSAS protest is not the Lagos State affair. It didn't even start in Lagos State. It started in faraway Delta, and then it started creeping all over the country, and then it brought us the kind of disaster that we are not seeing now. So I wouldn't say that the people are no genuine reasons. I have said so that the guys who started the NSAS protest, that they have genuine reasons. It was a noble intention. Don't forget that the governor, Mr. Baide Sanwo-Olu himself, addressed them twice. I remember following him to Lekki at the scene of the protest. He carried I saw the picture even in the foreign media. Then when he came to Ikeja, Alausa to talk to them and to collect a letter from them which he took to the president, he also marched with them. He carried the NSAS protest. So it was a genuine, noble step, just as it was led by our young people. And all true Nigerians, patriots, elderly people, they followed that our young people, they have said the right thing. But after that, people said it is time to go home. Your voice has been heard locally, globally, loud and clear. It's explicit. There is no need to press on. You risk your noble intention being hijacked, and that was exactly what happened. So, in discussing this matter, I would like us to try as much as possible to separate genuine anger from criminality. Any man who is not a criminal, no matter how angry, he can't go and steal. He can't go and attack a bank and attempt to remove the ATM. And you ask him, he say, I'm angry. It's not so. So let us be able to separate criminality from genuine anger. We are all human beings.
So, sir,
we are prone to anger, temper. No. Even the Bible recognizes that, even though it advises us to watch it. But as human beings, we are prone to anger. But no anger will make you to go and commit a crime.
A similar question to that, sir. This from the citizenry, most especially. talking about the government and the people. You as a man in charge of information and strategy, what are the strategies you are putting in place to earn back the trust of the people of Lagos with the whole issue at hand?
Well, honestly, without having to wait for too long, you can see that we have been able to earn the trust of even people who are non-Lagosians. Everybody knows the good intention of the Babajide Sanwo-Olu administration, and they have tried to identify with it in its time of trial. For us, these are trying times in Lagos, and the kind of outpouring of emotion, the outpouring of a goodwill, the outpouring of hands of solidarity to the government, they have shown that, yeah, the people really trust the government. But that is not to say that we feel infallible. No, there is no human being created by God who is infallible. So what we are trying to do is to do more of advocacy now, to let Lagosians own the government, to let Lagosians know that if you destroy government property, it is not going to hurt you alone, it's going to hurt all of us. To let Lagosians know that the heritage is ours, the culture is ours, the culture of love, the pride that we have in Lagos, that we cannot come together, turn up where nobody can come to Lagos and become somebody that is known globally. Now we are trying to do advocacy for Lagosians to be able to realize all of that. So if at all there was any mistrust, I believe that by now it's going down. It's not as strong as it may have been if there was any at all. Because I think that people are coming out to support the government shows that the level of trust, if anything, it is rising.
As information commissioner, your job must have been very difficult over the last 1 month or so. How did you cope with the whole variety of information coming out, both from print, from social media, from how did you cope with all of this?
It's been very tough, but you can see that we are now used to it. I remember when the government first came, people were talking about the government not fixing roads and that all the roads in Lagos were bad, and then the government was saying that the rains were disturbing us. After the rains, we start to fix the roads, and then when the rains subsided and nature smiled a little bit, and then we started to fix the roads and people were praising us. And we were thinking of doing so many other things that we promised the people of Lagos. And all of a sudden, coronavirus came upon us. And coronavirus globally has been a kind of calamity that humanity has been facing up till now. There are so many countries now that are under lockdown as we speak. And coronavirus began to disturb, and as it was giving way, and we were getting signal from experts that by August, latest, that we were going to get to the peak of it, and that it will start coming down. And then we started revving up our programs. We started pressing the throttle to see that we could raise, so that by the end of this year, we will have done so many things that will make life better for Lagosians. And then the SARS protest came. And the SARS protest, people felt it was going to last with us a couple of days. And it became something that dragged us into like 2 weeks. And after those 2 weeks, we felt that the worst may have been over. And then criminals took over. And then the carnage that we also. So it's been one crisis after another. But as human beings, this has made us to develop thick skin, to develop a crisis strategy, and to show that even though tough as the times are, that we have been toughened by the times, and then we will not allow this to make us lose focus. The focus is a service to the people of Lagos. And I'm happy to tell you that it has only been able to toughen me and not to weaken me. And then to be able to enrich my experience about crisis management in communication, in so many other areas.
Sir, I was going to ask, as a highly revered journalist, not only as a journalist, but as an informing commissioner, what can you say about the role of social media? Because a few weeks ago, the Director General of NBC was on Arise TV and he totally condemned the news, on the aftermath of the EXAS protest and everything. What is your take on the social media?
Well, I was talking to somebody on the phone just before thinking about the social media. Number one, we are all going to lose our jobs. And then number two, the kind of integrity that journalism confers on all of us, we are going to lose it. And once you lose your job, you lose your integrity, you lose your credibility. What else is left? It's to go. So all of us to go back to our villages and begin to farm. So what is going on the social media is, in my own view as a true journalist, condemnable. And we should all fight it. Because journalism is about facts and figures. Our culture abhors lying. Our culture abhors negativity. The kind of thing that people are doing nowadays on the social media to disrupt the good of society is all over the place now. That people are saying there was a massacre and that scores of people were killed. And people were actually showing videos and pictures of people purported to have died. I watched a woman on the social media was in London and showing a telephone that the son was killed in Lekki. And the next day, the friends of the son said, no, this guy died on Okada. And he didn't die alone, two of them died, and they mentioned the time and the place. I've seen photographs of people who are said to have died in Lekki, and people say, no, you have copied this from a Nollywood film. And some of us, once they send us such messages, we start to cheer them and say, as received. And I ask myself, received from who? Why don't you ask some questions before you start pressing send? So if we don't watch out what is going on in social media, we have not seen the kind of carnage that it can cause. It can cause violence on a scale that is beyond anybody's imagination. And the reports, the result of violence, nobody can predict. Once it starts, you don't know when it's going to end. So for all of us, the role of the social media, what has happened in Lagos and elsewhere, is condemnable, and I think it stands condemned. But I don't like just condemning without picking the lessons. I think the lesson that we can learn from this is that truth is constant. And all of us who are doing journalism, we should always stand by the truth. But we should do everything that we can do to strengthen our online services so that people, all of these people sending messages on their phones, we give them a run for their money. We should be first with the news and the facts. And whenever they come out with their negativity, we combat them with what is positive. If you are saying massacre in Lekki and by Friday is going to be 1 month after that, and yet you are still fishing for evidence. Whereas if you go to my 12 market where they are selling chicken, you don't need anybody to tell you that today they have killed 20. Now we are talking about Omar Bisa, we are looking for evidence all over the place. 4 days after the purported massacre, you go there, there is no blood on the streets there, and yet it didn't rain. You said you had trucks carrying people, and you were carrying bodies, and you carried 7 and put them at the feet of soldiers. Were you carrying babies? And then, how come you don't have the video of the soldiers taking away the bodies? You said your battery went down. Were you the only person there? No. And for the soldiers to have come to say that, yeah, it's true, we went there, we fired, but we fired blank bullets. Now why is it that you don't have the video and say, true journalists, I don't just forward things. I don't. I check. Because when they begin to trace those things and they trace them to you, look at the man who said he was there when the SARS people arrested a man and then that they killed him. they fired at the man and the man fell off their vehicle and all of that. And Keyamo went there to see the man in hospital and saw that the man didn't even have a life-threatening situation, and yet this man had posted the video and said that SARS people came, and that the unit of the police that went there was not even SARS, and that the man didn't die. They see what the thing has caused today. But the problem is that we as human beings, even though when we learn a lesson, we don't allow it to last. So all of us who are journalists, we should be all out to fight fake news, because it's going to take away our and say, please just save the place. Let them loot it, but don't let them burn it. That they can loot it, but they should not burn it down. That has shown where our society has degenerated to. We have lost our humanity, we have lost our positive emotion, we have lost, sorry to say, our sense of good and right, sense of good and bad. And this, I think, we need a lot of orientation, a lot of rethinking, a lot of repackaging to reshape. But we can't continue like this. There is no society that thrives on recklessness, on illegality, and makes the rule of law nothing that will make progress. And Nigeria wants to make progress, Lagos wants to make progress. We are in a hurry to make progress. So I believe that all of these, if we think very well, we will be able to learn from this and be able to reshape our future.
Thank you very much, Honorable Commissioner. We've had a very stimulating session. At this point, I'd like to welcome Pastor Dr. Jelabi, who is going to be talking to us in a few minutes and also leading us in prayer. It's 24th anniversary of the first building service. Welcome, you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
Can we bow our heads in prayers?